This Old Fitz 13 might be one of the rarest whiskeys of the year, but does that mean that it's good enough to be on top of our big board? Stay tuned after the break and we'll find out. All right, so just for the sake of time, if you want to check out how our big board reviews go, you can check out this link. It will take you to our Old Forester 1924. I've got an Old Fitz today, so I'm a little tongue-tied. That is the top thing on our board at the moment. That is our very first review, and I go into a little bit more depth as to why I do the things that I do. But just for the sake of time, you can check the description for the full write-up of how a big board review goes. It is our slightly more serious review than normal, but it is one whiskey, kind of. One whiskey is reviewed. We analyze it on nose and taste. Taste is broken down into palate and finish, because those are the things that you taste. And then we give you summarization. We give you a comparison bottle of something that you've probably more likely had. We'll talk value, and then we will give you a conclusion. We've done a very short review of it as a first impressions. You can check that out here. Otherwise, we're going to run into this, and step one is always to set our palate. And if you're new to the channel, anything that we have with a screw top always gets drank straight from the bottle. So this is our palate setter whiskey, Ancient Age. It's 90 proof. It's inoffensive. What's not to love? So real quick, we're going to talk about what this bottle is. So Old Fitzgerald is a formerly Stitzel Weller product. It is a now Heaven Hill thing. This is a 13-year-old release this year in 2024. It is the 25th anniversary of Heaven Hill owning the Bernheim Distillery. Now, what's so special about this, it is a 13-year-old bourbon, bottled and bond. So it is the product of one distilling season, and it's 100 proof. 13 years old, they decided it was perfect at that point, and then they vatted it for 12 years till a special occasion, and the 25th anniversary of the Bernheim is what it is. So it is called the 13 VVS. I think that stands for very, very special. Could be very, very select. Either way, I don't know. It is $230 MSRP. It's only available at the distillery, or in my case, at Kentucky Bourbon Fest. They released a small amount of bottles there. It is 68% corn, 28% wheat, and 12% malted barley. But we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it, and then we'll talk about what it actually is, how it tastes, how it smells, and give you a full-on review and put it on the big board. Without too much fanfare, let's get into it. Part of the review process is that I put these out ahead of time. So this has been sitting for 10 minutes or so, just to kind of let it acclimate, let it open up, let it breathe. First step, look at that color. The darkest 100 proof whiskey I've ever seen in my life. It might be close between this and the Remus Repeal Reserve, but this is pretty dang dark. We're going to nose it for 2 minutes, and then I'm going to give you a score 1 to 5. We're going to taste it, and then I will give you scores 1 to 5 on palate and finish, and then we'll talk about the rest. The only things that make it onto the big board are the nose, palate, and finish. Everything else is just an added bonus. Let's nose it. A little bit of citrus, some like marshmallow-esque notes, and then like a coffee, kind of like a mocha latte. Maybe a little bit of cherry. A little bit further out from the nose, it's got all of the makings of a s'more. It's got a little bit of graham cracker, a little bit of marshmallow, a little bit of chocolate. It has almost zero ethanol. It's just the faintest bit nutty, and I think the oak in this is coming off as like a chocolate or like a really dry, like peanut shells kind of thing. Slightly astringent. All right, so that's about 2 minutes. It is pretty much everything I'm looking for on the nose. It's really pleasant. Every whiff that I took of it gave me something a little bit different, and I like that. I like when it's interesting. It's not dull. It's not one-dimensional. Every whiff leaves you wanting a little bit more, and that is pretty close to my ideal nose. So I think on the nose, this is a 5 to me. Tons of scents, enough depth to them, and enough complexity that it's a perfect nose to me. It's giving me everything that I want from it. So that being said, let's see what it's like on the palate. Very excited for this. So cheers. First impressions are definitely very chocolatey. Like the oak is coming off as a lot of chocolate, and it's got a little bit of astringency. It's got a little bit of that like drying quality. It's definitely got like a coffee quality to it. A little bit of like vanilla, maybe some marshmallow. Not as citrusy on the palate, and it's really not that sweet like I would have expected. Maybe a little bit more sweetness from it, but that is not quite what this is. Very deep, very astringent, very rich palate and finish. The palate is s'moresy. It's got very s'mores-like flavors, like graham cracker, chocolate, and just like a hint of like vanilla and marshmallow. Definitely some like burnt bruleed sugar in there, in the background, not necessarily in the foreground like a lot of bourbon is. The finish is long, it's vibrant, next to no ethanol. I mean, it's got a little kiss of it on like the back of my tongue. I think it drinks pretty much dead on 100 proof. If I were blind guessing, I would imagine this is 100 proof. Like it doesn't, there are some 100 proof whiskeys that drink above. There are some that drink below. I think this is definitely the Goldilocks whiskey where it drinks dead at 100. Or something a little bit akin to like caramel syrup there for a second, and like maybe some dry walnuts. Not quite like a wet nuts kind of experience where it's like caramel and nuts together, but like the dryness of walnuts with the sweetness of a caramel syrup. I think the citrus note is popping its head up on the finish. Like it's just a little bit of that like orange peel mixed in with chocolate. Like it's definitely a little astringent. Got about one more sip in the glass here, and then we're going to tell you a score on the palate and finish and kind of talk about it a little bit. So savor the last sip. So here's what I like. On the palate, it is deep flavors, although I think it's a little overwhelmingly chocolate and a little bit too astringent for my palate. I like all of the flavors. I think it's very good. It's a little simplistic. It's not quite as complex as I'd like it to be, and it's a little astringent. So for me, that is a 4.5. It's not quite perfect. It's lacking a little bit of the sweetness that I'd like for it to be balanced. It's definitely tipped more towards the astringent side and the like dark, rich flavors. So I think 4.5 is the highest I'll go. Now on the finish, it is rich, it's lingering, it has heat, but it's appropriate heat, some oak, some chocolate, some citrus, possibly the best finish I've ever had. The finish is definitely the chef's kiss, the pièce de résistance. The nose is great, the finish is great. The finish gets a 5, dead on. This is a perfect finish. In summation, we have a whiskey that I think is very excellent. It is priced top tier, right? $230, so it is priced to be a top tier bottle. Ideally, you want it to be really, 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 really good. I think this follows through, right? I think this is, for me, especially being a proof hound that I am, this checks all of my boxes. It is very tough for a 100 proof whiskey to be a perfect 15 for me, but this comes as close as possible. Now, in comparison, I want to kind of talk about what I think comes close to this, because I don't think there's anything that like is dead on, right? I think the amount of chocolate that I get off of it is a Maker's Mark cellar aged kind of thing. And I think a lot of the notes that I get in this are very Maker's Mark-esque. And if you had handed this to me and I didn't know, I would probably assume that this is some sort of double oaked or wood finished product, because it's just got that depth of chocolate and richness to it. And the closest thing to that is actually probably, at least that I've had recently, is the Maker's Mark Heart Release. I think is close to this in a lot of the flavors, a lot of the quality that you get from that, you get from this. Although this is a comparison, but I'm not in any way saying that Maker's Mark Heart Release is as good or better than this. It's different. It takes 12 extra proof to get to the complexity of this, and it takes a whole secondary finishing process where this is literally just aging. But if you want something that's going to scratch the itch of you having tried this and wanting a similar experience, the Heart Release is something that's a little bit more available that you can get that is similar to this. So as far as value, it is $230. So my whiskey value calculator takes it with $230 being a 5, being properly valued. It would be up to 50% more, would be $345. 50% less would be $115. I think somewhere close to $175 would be ideal. And I'm kind of somewhat basing that off of Wild Turkey 1. has a similar value in my mind to this. So that is halfway between a 2 and a 3. So on value, we're going to give it a 2.5. It is not a high value whiskey, but often top end things I want to pay less for. This being as rare as it is, being as special as it is, I get it. I would buy another one. If I was offered another one at $230, I would keep a backup of this because I think it's good enough, but not enough to pay secondary of $750, $800 for it. I think it's time to put this on the big board. Let's get at it. All right, so on the big board, Old Forester 1924 at 13, Barrel King Knighted Batch 81 at 12.5, Green River Full Proof at 11. This Old Fitzgerald VVS is now on top at 14.5. So that puts us at the end of this. This is now the highest rated whiskey of 2024, even though we've only done 4 so far. There's plenty more to come. We're going to pound out a few more of these before the end of the year. A lot of stuff to get on the big board yet. And I think there are some things that are going to compete with this. So stay tuned for that. A lot of whiskey left for the year. It's only October. If you want to support the channel, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We've got Glens. We've got hats. So check that out if you are interested in joining. We have a membership here on YouTube that gets you just a whole bunch of things. You can check that out with the join button below. It will also get you access to our Discord, which we will probably be opening up to the public at some point, but for right now, it is just for members on YouTube here. In addition, we are launching a Patreon here real soon. I just got to get the time to do it. It'll be a sticker club. So every month you'll get mailed a sticker, and a sample club. Every month you'll get mailed a sample, or possibly save that up for a higher quality sample. We have some upcoming live streams. We've got the results of our fantasy whiskey draft coming also. It's going to be a fun time. Can't wait to get into it. Can't wait to get into those fantasy whiskey draft samples. If you want to check out the fantasy whiskey draft, it is here. We have an upcoming state of the industry address where we talk with Nick from Saubles Markets, and that is coming as well. Stay tuned for the dates for that. If you want to drop us a comment, tell us if you've had the Old Fitz 13 or if you're excited to try it. If you just want to complain about not being able to find it or getting gypped by Heaven Hill on a day where you sat and waited for it, it's totally fine. We're here for all of your comments. Please like and comment on this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and we hope you'll join us in drinking like a gentleman. Cheers. But it's not sucking all the moisture out of my mouth like a whiskey vampire, a whiskey desert. I don't know why a vampire would suck the moisture out of my mouth. They just want my blood. You know what? We're rolling with it. It's Halloween.